Hello, I'm Richard Pharro, CEO of APMG International, and I'd like to welcome you to this version of Midday Mentors. Today I'm delighted to be talking to Hani Awad. He's the CEO and founder of Toraza Zenith, a PPP training company also involved in project management and project development management, or is that project management development? I'd like to hand over to Hani. Hani, would you like to say a few words about yourself?
Certainly. Thank you, Richard, and thank you for inviting me to your Midday Mentor session. It's a true pleasure. Well, I have had a very interesting long journey, I must say. I come with about 20 years of international experience, mainly on commercial through transactional background in PPPs and project development management rather than project management development. So don't mind me saying that. But my focus has been primarily in the energy sector, oil and gas, along with other infrastructure projects. I've been working on many different projects across different countries. And around 4 years ago, it was our kids are growing up and we decided that we need to move back home, back to Canada. And so I set up the company, Toraza Zenith. And the focus of this company at the time was primarily on delivering advisory services around the PPP or P3, as we call it in Canada, as well as the project development management, which is my first-hand experience. Then I started with a business, and interestingly, on a Christmas day in 2016, Christmas Day, who works on Christmas Day, except for a mutual friend of ours, Martin Kinch, chairman of Training Bite Size. I received a message from him saying, "I see you're in the PPP business in Canada. Let's talk." So coincidentally, I was actually speaking to APMG at the time on how to obtain our accreditation for the CP3P program, which was recently released. So Martin and I spoke, and we hit it off immediately, and we agreed to develop this affiliation and partnership, which is ongoing since, and it's been a brilliant arrangement.
The interest of PPP in Canada. I mean, I understand Canada is a country where PPPs are very common. They seem to be one of the global leaders in the use of PPP in procurement. Is that because of a particular sector? Is it because of a particular industry? Why do you think you've been so successful with PPPs in Canada?
Well, as you mentioned, Canada is a global leader in PPPs. There are a few other countries, of course, like Australia, the UK, but the PPP or the P3 model is a continuously evolving model. Now, Canada has been successful. There have been, there are 2-3 different criteria for its success in Canada. One being the transparency of the mechanism. It's fairly structured. Each province has a specialized unit for PPP, such as Infrastructure Ontario, Partnerships BC, that's in British Columbia. So every province has one, and they become the focal point for procurement. Now, it's been successful because of in Canada, the important factor is the partnership, the last P of PPPs, and trying to find a balance on that. And Canada has been successful in that. And the sectors it's been involved in, well, Canada is well known for the transportation sector, but also recently on the social side, social infrastructure such as healthcare, education. And I think we saw that a lot of that during COVID. The response to the COVID in Canada has been reliant heavily on the PPP model.
Hani, you say about the partnership is very important in the use of PPP in Canada. And clearly the nature of PPPs being this merging between the public sector and the private sector. Collaboration is very important. How do you see collaboration working in PPPs in general, and maybe in Canada in particular? Is it something that the teams really have to work on, or is it something that comes naturally if you bought into the concept of PPP as a procurement model?
The issue of partnership, the definition of partnership is very important. What we've realized throughout our experience in the industry, not just in Canada but globally, is that there is a misconception of what partnership means. And there have been thoughts in certain regions where this is a great model from a public sector perspective. Great model, let's dump it on the private sector. We don't have the money, let them take care of that. And on the other side, you've had some private sectors say, you know, that's great, but we'll dump the risks on the public sector. Now, the intricacy of the partnership definition is finding the right balance. And it's not a matter of loading the other side. Now, they've been, you know, we look at it like a balance where you've got a tipping on either side and they call it's a PPP. So not every agreement is a PPP. You need to have that balance. And it comes down to the risk aspects on how do you allocate, how do you share, how do you transfer the risks between the parties. And look, at the end of the day, it's a mutual understanding. There needs to be the good faith where the parties sit down around the table and understand each other. And that's the key to success of a P3 model.
I wouldn't ask you to name anyone, but have you seen a PPP model that's gone wrong because that balance hasn't been there? That the parties thought they understood it, but they haven't?
Absolutely, absolutely. That many cases, and actually quite a big percentage of projects fail because of that. We've had a couple of projects here in Canada which are, without naming specific projects, but there's been an imbalance in how that project has been structured. Now, one thing I need to mention, and yes, I am an advocate, and we as Toraza and Canada are advocates of P3 projects, but not every project qualifies to be a P3 project. And this is something that many jurisdictions fail to realize. Now, of course, the P3 has a spectrum of different projects, different structures on how do you structure a P3. There's starting from the DBF to the BFOM and so on and so forth. It's a matter of really understanding the outcome, and there needs to be a mutual understanding between the parties.
And I understand you've developed a concept of project development management. Did I get it right that time?
Yes, you did, sir. Yes, you did.
And I assume this comes from your experience of working in PPP, working with the public and the private sector. So would you like to say a little bit about what that concept is and what benefits you think that brings to either PPP procurement or procurement in general?
Certainly. It does come from my personal experience with the project development management. Now, as there's the project management words in there, we're not trying. You know, I'm a project manager by profession. You know, my academic background is project management. It's not a replacement of project management qualifications, similar to what APMG offers or PMI, etc. What we're trying to do is, you know, from my personal experience, the important part of any project success are the earlier stages of the project lifecycle. What we realized is that project management techniques or tools or knowledge that professionals usually apply more on the execution or implementation phase of the project. But what we realized is that if you don't structure it properly, you don't manage it properly from an early stage, then that's where projects fail. And it's become an industry trend now with many developers and with many funds, for example, who take on the development function or the lead. rather than coming in at a later stage, they're realizing that they need to enter at an earlier stage, on the conceptual stage, and then you talk about the planning and the design and so on. Now that is a major function. We're talking the pre-financial close phase.
Yeah.
And what we try to provide, we provide advisory, but on this, we've created a product, which is, we don't go in and just advise. What we do is we create a workshop, and it becomes a hands-on advisory product or program, whereby members of the project team, or it could be any functional, any person in any functional role could participate in this, whether it's from the financial, the technical, the HR, legal could participate. It's a matter of understanding how do you apply the project management, but on the development side, until you get to the project, the financial close stage. And this is something which is we're very excited about. We've ran a few sessions on those for a couple of clients, and it's been quite interesting.
Hani, all of the research that I read about successful projects or project performance, probably over the last 30 or 40 years, it always suggests only somewhere between 20 to 30% of projects ever succeed. So with your idea around project development management, what role do you think that is going to play in improving that success rate of the project? And in particular, what are the failure issues that are associated with projects are answered by your early workshop? So could you tell us a little bit about the workshop and how that then flows into, hopefully, the more successful delivery?
Certainly. Well, obviously, we're trying to target, our objective is to improve that success rate. What we've identified is that if you don't structure and you don't look at a project is not structured properly, and certain issues are not addressed earlier on in the project structuring phase, that leads to failure. We don't address any specific delivery model in this, but one aspect we focus on is the business case development. Within that, there is a lot of details that need to be looked at, apart from the feasibility, viability, and bankability of projects. You want to find the best fit delivery model as well. And three things that we've realized tend to be overlooked from industry professionals, or let's say not overlooked, but tend not to be overemphasized in their studies or in the business case, are stakeholder management, risk management, and planning. We find that these are very important to be addressed at an earlier stage in a project, at the very earlier phases of the life cycle. And what we do with our program is we get our participants to actively get involved in this on their projects for their organization, which leads to sort of a lessons learned type of arrangement. It's a hands-on workshop.
So my experience in construction was there was never enough money at the front end of the project to do the workshops, to really engage with the team and bring the team together. But there always seemed to be enough money at the end of the project to settle claims and pay over the odds because the project had to be completed. You seem to have cracked that problem with your concept of getting people to engage and invest at the front end, hopefully to make sure it's a smoother project, less risk, less cost, and fewer delays, and therefore overall a more successful project. It must be fascinating to see how those teams sort of change over the beginning of the workshop to after the workshop and then on to the execution of the project. Has anyone yet delivered a project following your intervention with this early stage workshop?
Actually, yes, Richard. Interesting that you mentioned that. We have delivered to a couple of clients, international developers, who've taken on our program, and well, we're yet to see the outcomes because we got hit with COVID. But we trained approximately 60 executives so far across in the US and in Europe. But one thing I'd like to address with this is traditionally in the construction industry, many contractors, let's call it, tend to prepare their projects on the basis of claims.
Yep.
So they compromise, they cut throat earlier on, and the returns on the project are usually focused on the claims part at the end. What we're trying to demonstrate here is that if you structure it properly earlier on and find, dig into your pockets earlier on, spend a bit of money and time on the earlier process, your IRRs will be higher at the end, and that will be better returns to the project sponsors. So it's, in a way, the industry is moving in that direction.
Yeah.
And we're trying to support that.
Hani, before we wrap up, you just mentioned about COVID-19 having an impact on some things that are happening. So what do you think is going to be the effect of COVID-19 over the short to medium term for PPP projects? Do you think there's going to be more focus on it because of healthcare and social infrastructure, or do you think there may be fewer projects?
The COVID-19 has brought many issues to the table. Over the past couple of months, 3 months, industry professionals have had many mixed reviews on the impact of COVID-19 on P3 projects. There are those that believe that P3s should be dumped. Others believe that this is the only solution. What we see, we still believe a lot in P3s, and in Canada in particular, we've seen that it's a success, and it helped the Canadian market and even the well-being of the Canadian citizens to overcome the COVID-19, whether it's in the healthcare, education, and so on, so forth. Now, once again, I think regardless of how it ends up, there are two things that one needs to look at. The issue of risk between the parties needs to be looked at, and how do you, not in terms of just the risk, but how do you manage the risk? I think there needs to be a more mutual understanding of sharing risk. Another important thing, another interesting terminology which is circulating in Canada is we need to move from shovel-ready projects to more shovel-worthy projects.
Yeah.
And what that means is we look at values, and it's not just value for money, which obviously P3s is one of the fundamental criteria for success, is the value for money. But you need to look at other values, economic, social values. And this is where public sectors can start prioritizing their projects based on the worthiness of the projects rather than just the readiness. So I think it's interesting times.
Hani, I think worthiness of a project could be a subject for another day. It's fascinating talking to you. It's great, actually. It's great hearing someone with real experience about PPP, and also a solution to that age-old problem of getting investment at the front end of the project, so you actually do the right project and not just the project right. So many thanks for speaking to me. Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Thank you, Richard.